December 22nd, 1899. The Daily Telegraph, Quebec, Canada. Christmas greens. Decoration of evergreens and flowers is of pagan origin. The Christmas decorations may have originated in the Saturnalia or in the old Teutonic practice of hanging the interior of dwellings with evergreen as a refuge for sylvan spirits from the inclemency of winter. But the Christmas tree is of German origin. It is their chief ornament and symbol. It is not used for the hanging of gifts, but it is used entirely as a bright ornament, being made to glisten with lights and tinsel. It is kept throughout the 12 days of Christmas, and at intervals is lighted, and on New Year's Eve is lighted for all night. The custom of decorating dwellings and churches with evergreen was known by the Christians to be a remnant of paganism and was forbidden by the council, but it had too strong a hold to be given up. Even in Boston, Justice Samuel Sewall cried out against it, but it crept to its place by degrees. Holly and ivy were favorites in Great Britain, being regarded as sacred emblems of the season. Holly used in churches was kept by families to ensure a lucky year. Mistletoe was held in so much veneration by the pagans that it was cut with a golden sickle by the Prince of the Druids, with whom it first appears. The introduction of flowers to the tokens of festivity seems to have existed universally and at all times of history. It was a pagan manifestation of rejoicing and, though forbidden by the early church and denounced by the Puritans of New England, it became a general custom. While obliged to give credit to early and heathen notions for much of the Christmas which we so fondly cherish, we can but remember our own Benjamin Franklin for the one motto as being American: a good conscience is a continual Christmas. Yuletide Games. Snapdragon, a diversion popular in England. Little known in this country, Snapdragon is a diversion in which in England young and old participate throughout the Christmas season. Apparently it is a dangerous pastime. Really, it is harmless and no one ever suffers an accident through playing it. Babies of 3 or 4 years engage in it with great glee, in which there is an admixture of fear, but nerve generally conquers, and once in the game they cannot be kept out of it. The requisites of Snapdragon are 1 or 2 large platters such as roasts are served on, some large, fat raisins, a little brandy or gin, a match, and a darkened room. The platters are arranged thus. If there is but one, and the party is of moderate number, it is laid in the center of a dining table. If the number of participants is large, then 2 platters are laid, 1 at each end of the table, or there may be 2 small tables with a platter on each. Next, the raisins are laid over each platter, singly and at short distances apart. A small quantity of brandy or gin is then poured over each platter and ignited. Put out all the lights in the room, leaving none but that from the dancing blue flames in the platters. Everybody looks weird and feels uncanny, and the fun begins. Each participant snaps at a raisin on the dish, and, hit or miss, the blue flame clings to the fingers in writhing forked tongues, thus providing the dragon. The raisins are all finally secured, the flames die out, the lights are turned on, and the company is ready for another diversion, unless, as is often the case, there is a call for a repetition of the fun just ended. San Francisco Post Magazine. Bearing home the Yule Log. In the Black Mountains at the present day, the custom of bearing home the Yule Log is still observed in all its ancient detail. The house father fells the chosen trees. Then he utters a prayer and carefully lifts up his log and bears it home on his shoulder. His sons follow his example, each bearing a log for himself. The father then leans his log up against the house, being very careful that the freshly cut end is uppermost. The lesser logs of the other members surround it, and this is the Glavny Bodnyak. As the housefather places each log, he says, Veshi Bodnyadan, or a merry log day. The fire thus kindled was not allowed to go out until the following year, or great evil would befall the household. The faggots of the old fire lighted the new logs, and then were carefully extinguished and stored away among the household treasures. In the Highlands of Scotland to this day, it is considered a great misfortune if the fire is allowed to go out, and often one hears it said, "Yene look, you've lead out the fire." Boston Herald. Yule Log. It has its origin in Scandinavian mythology. In the Scandinavian feast of Yule, when they burned huge bonfires in honor of Thor, we discover the origin of the Yule Log. The descendants of the Old Norsemen, who no doubt are responsible for the custom in England, carefully preserved half of the log with which to be burned at next Yuletide. And so we have the Old English proverb, but in poetical form, by Herrick. Part must be kept wherewith to tend the Christmas log next year, and where 'tis safely kept, the fiend can do no mischief here. The Druidical contribution to the modern Christmas celebration originated in the annual feast given in honor of the Druid god Teutinus, who corresponds to the Phoenician sun god Baal. His favorite among all trees and plants of the forest was supposed to be the mistletoe. The number 3 was held in reverence by these ancient people, and, because the leaves and berries of this parasite grew in clusters of 3, this, in addition to the glory of being Teutinus's favorite, made the plant sacred, and annually there was a great festival given in its honor. In the choice and selection of the Yule log, the ash tree plays a very important part. In Scandinavian mythology, it is Odin's tree, and was most noble, for its wood made the spear and the javelin, the oar and the mast. In their language, ash means man, and the legend runs that when the sons of Bor, who were sons of Odin, formed the first man and woman, they were made out of a piece of ash. This man was named Aska. And at the present day in Devonshire, as a relic of this pagan reverence for this tree, we find the Christmas faggot made of ash sticks, bound tightly together by green withes or bands of pollard oak. As each withe bursts, a quart of cider is passed around, and healths are drunk amid great glee and rejoicing. The gypsies, too, and the wild hill people of Bavaria and Bohemia reverence the ash, although their legends attached to it are Christian in their origin. Boston Herald. Christmas Day. How the date December 25th came to be established. There is some disagreement as to the origin of Christmas Day. The legend runs that in the earliest period of the Christian Church, some communities of Christians celebrated the festival of Christmas on January 1, others observing it on the 6th of that month. In some of the Eastern churches, it was kept about the time of the Jewish Passover, near the end of March. There is also some evidence of its having been observed on September 20, being the Feast of Tabernacles. In the year AD 325, when the Emperor Constantine legally established Christianity in the Roman Empire, Christmas was observed at the beginning of the new year, while in the Eastern Church, it was celebrated on January 6. Pope Julius eventually effected a compromise, and the 25th day of December was established. These historical statements have been called in question by some, but John Chrysostom, the eloquent preacher at Constantinople in the 4th century, confirms them. It is a curious circumstance that some difficulty has been found in accepting the date of December 25th as the probable day on which Christ was born, because, the close of December being usually the height of the rainy season in Judea, it is said that neither flocks nor shepherds could have been at night in the fields of Bethlehem. This strange objection is considered of such importance that it is incorporated in almost every encyclopedia and dictionary which treats of Christmas. It is one of the curiosities of literature. The present writer has been in those parts at this season of the year and has found no difficulty in keeping watch by night in the open fields of Palestine. What is possible for a Western traveler, unused to living in the open air, in the 19th century, must have been far easier for a band of Eastern shepherds at the beginning of the Christian era.